Jesus Christ took the first ever selfie, and we have the picture to prove it. Today, we are diving deep into the most fascinating and rigorously studied artifacts in human history, the Shroud of Turin. This is a 14.5-foot by 3.5-foot herringbone linen cloth bearing the faint front and back image of a crucified man. It's been examined by experts across more than 100 scientific disciplines for over 600 hours of analysis, and it now resides in Turin, Italy. New Testament scholar Dr. Jeremiah Johnston calls it the only extra-biblical artifact that simultaneously provides compelling evidence for the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Today, we are going to walk through the evidence step by step, scientific, historical, and biblical, so you do not want to miss this episode. But first, if you could hit that like button, share, and subscribe, it would really help out the channel, and I would really appreciate it. Anyways, like I was saying, I believe that what we are going to talk about today will not only be incredibly interesting, but it will also strengthen your faith like never before. At least it did to C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis kept a framed photograph of the Shroud's face on his Oxford bedroom wall until the day he died. In a letter to the Anglican nun who sent it, Lewis wrote, "Thank you so much for the head of our Lord from the Shroud. It has grown upon me wonderfully. Our God has a face." For Lewis, the image served as a daily reminder that God truly did become incarnate and died for us. One of the most fascinating things about the Shroud is that it perfectly aligns with what the Bible has to say about how Jesus was crucified. The forensic and medical details on the Shroud match the gospel accounts of what Jesus went through with striking precision. The man depicted stands approximately 5 feet 11 inches tall, 180-ish pounds, which is consistent with a strongly built first-century Jewish man. Remember, Jesus walked an incredible amount during his ministry. It's estimated that he walked over 3,000 miles during those 3 years. The man in the Shroud bears 100 to 120 clear scored strokes from a Roman flagrum whip fitted with dumbbell-shaped lead weights. When you count every individual wound and abrasion visible on the cloth, including overlaps and marks on less visible areas, researchers estimate that there are well over 700 total wounds on the man's body. These wounds cover him from shoulders to the calves, even around the groin area, consistent with a victim who was stripped naked and whipped mercilessly from multiple angles by at least 2 executioners. Nail wounds appear in the wrists, matching known Roman crucifixion practice. This fulfills Psalm 22:16, which says, "They have pierced my hands and my feet." The term also included the wrist area. There is no separate word for wrist in everyday language, so the depiction fits perfectly with the forensic evidence on the Shroud. There are clear shoulder abrasions from carrying the crossbeam, 50 punctures from a crown of thorns, which was really like a helmet of thorns. And this is interesting because as far as we know, Jesus was the only one that was crucified with a crown of thorns. So it likely wasn't anybody else. There's also a spear wound in his right side and knee abrasions from the falls. No leg bones are broken, exactly as John 19:33 records, but when they came to Jesus and saw that he was already dead, they did not break his legs. What makes the Shroud especially striking is this contrast. It shows a man who endured extreme brutality and torture, yet he received a dignified and honorable burial in high-quality linen. This is exactly what the Gospels describe. Matthew 27:59-60 tells us Joseph took the body and wrapped it in a clean linen cloth and laid it in his own tomb. The same sequence appears in Mark 15:46, Luke 23:53, and John 19:38-42. Real human blood, type AB, shows serum halos visible under ultraviolet light. The blood contains hemoglobin, bilirubin, and nanoparticles of fibrin, and creatinine. I think I said those right. Anyways, they are consistent with extreme torture. So if this is fake, whoever made this would have had to use real blood, but not just any real blood, blood from a man that was specifically tortured. Another fascinating detail reveals the precise sequence of events. The bloodstains formed first, followed by the body image, with no signs of decomposition anywhere on the cloth. The image also captures the body in full rigor mortis, and rigor mortis normally begins a few hours after death and becomes complete around the 12-hour mark. And generally, it starts to break down after 36 to 40 hours. Because there is no evidence that the rigor ever began to release and absolutely no decomposition stains, we know that the body was removed from the cloth well before the 40-hour window. The short contact time fits a sudden departure from the cloth. Even more remarkable is that there are no smear marks on any of the bloodstains. If someone had physically unwrapped or lifted the bloodied body from the tightly wrapped cloth, the dried blood clots would have smeared, or it would have at least been disturbed. Instead, every bloodstain remains perfectly intact and undisturbed at all. It's as if the body simply left the cloth, almost like it teleported or passed through the fabric. And although this sounds absolutely crazy, it's not really that crazy. After his resurrection, Jesus repeatedly appeared and vanished in ways that defy normal physics. Luke 24:31 tells us that on the road to Emmaus, their eyes were opened and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. He also appeared to the disciples in a locked room without using the door. John 20:19 says, "On the evening of that day, the first day of the week, the doors being locked, where the disciples were for fear of the Jews, Jesus came and stood among them and said to them, 'Peace be with you.'" So apparently, Jesus has the ability to just phase through objects, which is something that me and you will also have the ability to do whenever we are resurrected in the end days. The image itself possesses properties that no artist, medieval or modern, has ever been able to reproduce. When Italian photographer Secondo Pia took the first official photographs of the shroud in 1898, something astonishing happened. As he developed the large glass plates in his dark room late at night, he was so shocked that he nearly dropped and broke the fragile plate. The faint, barely visible image on the cloth had appeared as a perfect photographic negative, and when developed, it revealed a strikingly clear, positive, and lifelike image of a crucified man, far more detailed than what anyone could see with the naked eye on the actual cloth. In that moment, Secondo Pia famously exclaimed, "Oh my God," and makes sense that he did. It was his God. This single moment in a Turin dark room changed everything. For the first time in history, people could see the true face and full body of the man on the shroud in vivid detail. Then, in 1976 through 1984, NASA scientists Dr. John Jackson and Dr. Eric Jumper ran the photograph of the shroud through a VP8 image analyzer, which is basically a device designed to convert light and dark shades into 3D. What they saw shocked them, and the shroud's image contains precise three-dimensional topographic data unlike any painting, drawing, or photograph in the real world. The darker areas correspond exactly to parts of the body that were closer to the cloth, and lighter areas to parts that were further away. This creates a perfect, anatomically accurate 3D model of a real human body. On top of that, the image is incredibly superficial. It only affects the outermost 200 to 600 nanometers of the linen fibers, which a nanometer is basically 1/10 of the thickness of a single human hair. That's how small the image really is. There are no pigments, no dyes, no brushstrokes, and no directionality that would suggest an artist's hand. After 5 days of intense study in 1978, the Shroud of Turin research project concluded that the image could not have been created by any known artistic technique. And still to this day, they still don't know how. physicists and researchers describe the formation as a result of an intense, unknown energy burst, often called a resurrection signature. Some people think that this energy burst could have actually been the thing that caused the stone to roll over. Now, it only gets better from here, though, because geographical evidence anchors the shroud firmly in 1st century Jerusalem. In the 1970s, Swiss criminologist and forensic expert Max Frel used sticky tape sampling to collect microscopic dust from the cloth. He identified 57 different pollen species. Many of these came from plants that grow only in the Jerusalem area, the Dead Sea region, the Negev Desert, and parts of Anatolia in Turkey. Now, these plants are only known to bloom in the spring, which is exactly during Passover season, the time that Jesus would have died. Adding to this, researchers also discovered tiny particles of a rare form of limestone called travertine aragonite, and it's found almost exclusively in the Jerusalem region. These particles were on the man's knees and were found mostly where the feet in the image would have been, right? Exactly where you would expect dirt from a man who had walked and fallen on the rocky ground in Jerusalem. Together, the pollen and the limestone provide powerful evidence that this cloth originated in the Holy Land and in the 1st century, not medieval Europe. Now, you may have heard that the Shroud of Turin can't be real because the carbon dating does not align with the time of Jesus. But the 1988 carbon-14 dating that suggested a medieval origin has been thoroughly discredited. It's not true. The tested sample came from a repaired corner containing 16th century cotton threads and patches. They tried to repair the corners because the shroud was burned from a fire. And actually, it has miraculously survived 5 different fires. Now, supposedly, the laboratories were not informed of this contamination, but perhaps there was more to it, and they were trying to suppress the truth. Who knows? But new independent studies have corrected the record. Chemist Raymond Rogers, Nillian Loss, I think I said his name right, he's an analysis, and he dated the cloth between 1,300 to 3,000 years old. Most convincingly, the 2022 wide-angle X-ray scattering study by Dr. Liberato De Caro matched the cellulose degradation to 1st century linen from Masada. Under normal storage conditions, the shroud is fully consistent with a 2,000-year-old artifact. Dr. Jeremiah Johnston, once a skeptic himself, now calls the cumulative evidence a slam dunk. He has powerfully presented these findings on the Sean Ryan Show, Glenn Beck podcast, Michael Knowles Show. He was also recently on Sadie Robertson's podcast. Lots of different places have been showing him and his work. And in his book, The Jesus Discoveries, Johnston describes the shroud as the only artifact outside the Bible that gives evidence to the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus all in one. This is truly a remarkable artifact that can really help when one is evangelizing to the Islam community or to Jews, or just anyone that has doubts about Jesus Christ coming to earth and dying for us and resurrecting again. The biblical record aligns seamlessly with physical evidence. The Gospels describe Joseph of Arimathea wrapping Jesus in a large linen shroud, like I previously mentioned, and in John 20:6-7, it says, "Then Simon Peter came and went to the tomb. He saw the linen cloths lying there and the face cloth which had been on Jesus' head, not lying with the linen cloths, but folded up in a place by itself." The shroud was the outer burial cloth, while the sudarium of Oviedo served as the face cloth. What is really cool is that we have both of these still today. The sudarium of Oviedo and the shroud both show matching bloodstains and pollen, and everything fits Jewish burial custom without contradiction. So in conclusion, I think it's pretty clear. The Shroud of Turin is not a hoax. There are too many things going on for it to be. This is the most studied artifact in all of history, and to not have one scientist at all be able to explain how something like this could have happened is pretty remarkable. It stands as the strongest extra-biblical evidence for the resurrection and brings fresh light to 1 Corinthians 15, where Paul proclaims that Christ was buried and that he was raised on the third day in accordance with the scriptures. Taken together, the forensics, botany, image science, updated dating, and perfect scriptural harmony point to one conclusion. The Shroud of Turin is the authentic burial cloth of Jesus Christ, bearing the physical imprint of his resurrection. Just as it moved C.S. Lewis, my hope is that it will move you to a powerful realization that our God truly became man, truly died, and truly rose again. If you enjoyed this, please like, share, and subscribe. Many people need to know that Jesus really was who he said he was. I'll see you on the next one. Thank you.